Welcome back to our sessions on functions. In the last class, we have discussed about different types of parameters like positional parameters, default parameters, and named parameters. Now we can have all these parameters together in an argument list in a function's definition. However, we have to remember that positional arguments should be placed or appear before the keyword and default parameters. For any parameter, whether it is used as a positional parameter or a named parameter or a default parameter, value may be provided only once, and default parameters should always be towards the right, or they should be the rightmost, because we have already seen that non-default parameters cannot appear after the default parameters. So let us now take an example. If you remember that in the last part where we have seen discussed different types of arguments like keywords arguments, positional arguments, and default arguments, we have used the same example of calculating simple interest, and in this function we are not returning the value, simply we are passing the value. And remember that default parameters, they provide the flexibility of skipping the value for which value of the parameter for which default value is provided, and named parameter, they provide the flexibility of calling a function by changing the order of parameters. Now here, if you see the function's definition, that is simple interest, first there is a principal, then there is time, and then there is rate. Now from here we can easily know that rate is a default parameter and it is kept in the rightmost size. Now to check whether there is any named parameter or not, we have to go to the function call, because named parameter, they are assigned named during function call, which is same as that in the function's definition. Now we have written here time equal to t, which means that time is a named parameter. So look at this example. Principal, now that means is a positional parameter, so value for principal is mandatory. Time order we might have changed, but here since it has to appear time has to appear before default parameter, because default parameter should be the rightmost, and since positional parameters should appear before any other, so the order should be here. Keeping in mind the restrictions, the order should be here: positional parameter, then named parameter, and then default parameter. So this is how we can have all the different types of parameters in a parameter list. Let us now discuss about different types of functions depending upon the return value. As we have discussed earlier, a function may return some value or may not return some value, or it may return multiple values through a return statement. This is one of the major difference of function in Python than in other programming languages. In other programming languages, to return multiple values, we have to derive or use a derived data type like an array or a pointer. But here in Python, we can directly pass multiple values through a return statement. Now, if a function is returning some value, then it is called as a fruitful function, non-void function, and if it is not returning any value, then it is called a void function. So void functions, which are also known as non-fruitful functions, they do the task but they do not return any result to the caller. They may have a return statement which is used for returning values from a function to its caller, but without any expression like the one here written. And if we try to use the value of a void function, then the legal none value will be used, or we can say every void function returns the legal empty value none to its caller. Let us see an example. And we are trying to find the sign of a number, whether it is positive or negative. So it is passing a parameter. We are taking the input for x. We are calling the sine function named as SGN by passing the value of x. Now that value of x is passed to a. It is comparing with 0, whether it is greater than 0, then it is positive, otherwise it is negative. So simply the function will be called, the value, whether it is positive or negative, the message, it will be printed inside the function. Now let us check another example where it is not returning any value, but we are trying to print it. So here we have used a big function to find out the bigger of two numbers. We are taking input to input x and y, and then we are calling the function big by passing the values of x and y, and we are trying to assign it to a variable. Since here there is no return statement, so this big function is not returning any value. So if we try to use it, then we will see what is there. So when we are passing the values of x and y, say we input 5 and then 6, then it compares the two values, and depending upon the values, it will print the bigger inside the function. But then this print statement, greater is z, see, this is printing none. Okay, let us see an example of some void function. Let us try to write a program that will not return any value. Let us open new file, and let us try to check whether number is odd or even. So what we will do, functions definition to check odd or even. Now the def keyword followed by the name odd even, followed by the parameter. We need only one parameter, say num, and then followed by this colon, and if num mod 2 equals to 0, there is no space. Okay, num mod 2 equals to 0, then print the function is even, otherwise print the number is odd. And then the main part, where we'll take input for any number, say n equals to, typecast it to integer, and then input, enter number, close the brackets, and then call the function odd even by passing the value of n. That's all. Let us save the program. File, save, so we'll save it, Python others, and odd even, save, and then run the program, run the module, enter a number, we'll say 6, it will print even. Again we'll run this module and say 7, odd. So the program is correct. Now this is a void function. It is not returning any value, but it is doing its task in the function itself. Now if we try to use this value for example, print n is odd or even, it will say print then what it will display. So save the program, file, save. You can also use Ctrl S, run module. Now if I am giving 6, it will print even, but then 6 is none because of this print statement, because we are trying to get the value of a void function. Now similarly, if a function is returning any value, then it is called a non-void function or a fruitful function. In that case, the return value, the value to be returned, will be returned using a return statement. Whenever this return statement is executed, the control is transferred to the point from where the function is being called. We have discussed this in while we were discussing how to execute a function or how function gets executed. So as soon as the return statement is executed, it returns the value to the caller and control is transferred back to the calling part. This return value may be used in any expression. For example, let me make it as a we can make anything as a comment. Okay, so let us find out sum of numbers from 1 to n. So functions definition, sum up to n. So what we have to do, we have to define a function sum, say I give the name as sum n, and sum, and I give the value as just name it a different little differently. I name it as capital S, sum, and the number as n. And what we will do, we'll take a variable which will initialize to 0, and then take a for loop for I in range n. We want to add up to n from 1, so we have to give the start value as 1. We may give the start value as 0, no problem, but we have to then take it up to n plus 1, so that it will also add n. Otherwise, we know range function, it takes the last value as n minus 1. Then add I to sum. So this calculates the sum, then return the sum. Okay, now our main part. So here we'll take input for input find sum up to which value. Okay, close the parenthesis, then call the function result equal to sum. See, I have used S as capital to change the name, and X, and we have a print statement, say print sum of integers up to x is or equals to whatever you write equals to result. Save the function and run it. Find sum up to, suppose I give 10, so the result is sum of integers to 10 is 55. So this is how the return statement can be used for returning value, which can be used in any expression. Okay. So this is regarding functions which return any value. So a return statement may also return multiple values, but we will see this in the next class.